Hi, I'm Brynne. Thank you for asking me to speak. So I'll qualify myself briefly. I grew up in a home affected by alcoholism, which what it looked like for me is that my mom's an adult child. So there was no active addiction in my house, but it was definitely, she taught me all of the tools of Alanon all of the tools that I inherited all of my Alanonism from my mom. And my dad was not around very much, but he was the product of a rageaholic father, and my grandmother was a Holocaust survivor and pretty subservient to my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. So that's a brief overview of my family history. There's a way, I can get far more granular and in depth than that, but I really don't need to. I started coming to Alanon because I was, again, the Cliff's Notes is that I was involving myself with alcoholics and carrying on full-on imaginary relationships with them. So I think I had a friend from high school who was in the rooms, and I think she had overheard me apologize for like the 90th time and said, if you don't stop apologizing to this person, I'm going to drag you in Alanon by your, like, whatever. It was some language. And not the gentle way, not the way you should bring anyone into the room, but it worked for me. I'm here. I'm still here like 6 years later. So, I mean, I would not recommend that you physically threaten anyone that you think needs to come into the rooms, but it worked for me. And I was grateful. I'm still grateful. So I came into the rooms pretty much. I feel like I usually wear sweatpants whenever I hit a bottom and come into this. They're usually gray. And crawl through that door. There was like no place to sit, so I just like sat on the floor, which like really was a physical representation of how I felt. You know, I felt like I didn't even deserve to have a chair, you know? So that's how I got here. I was pretty adamant about getting a service commitment as soon as I could and getting a sponsor as soon as I could, because due to all the chaperoning I'd done for my pet alcoholic, I understood that service was important. So I got a service commitment as soon as I got in the rooms. I got a sponsor pretty quickly and started working the steps. But one thing I didn't anticipate was I still didn't know how to pick people at all. Like I picked a sponsor that was like physically and just not available to me at all. I picked I think we'd be friends. Like I'll pick her. And she was nowhere to be found when I needed her, which is, it's cool. Like we're friendly now, and it is what it is, you know, like people show up. I learned in this rooms that people show up the best way that they can, and I understand that about myself and other people. So I got through my service commitment. I found another sponsor who's still my sponsor, and we share a natal birthday and an Al-Anon anniversary. So if you believe that dates and times have anything to do with anything, it is a very funny how the parallels that I can discuss with her about our recovery. So one thing I have to say about service commitments for me is that they've always been autobiographical. like I usually come into the business meeting and is that a warning? Okay, cool. Whatever I need to learn at that time usually is summed up in a service commitment, whether I'm ready to receive that lesson or not. So for me, there has always been God in the service commitments. One thing that I have to say about my time here is that like I wasn't just picking alcoholic people, or it's not cool to diagnose. I'll just say unwell or aholic or spiritually deficient, whatever. I don't know if that's probably not. It wasn't just people; it was situations. It was internal behaviors. It was jobs. It was bosses, and I'd gone through. I kept picking like the worst situations to work or be involved in or to do. But yeah, anyway, so I started working the steps. I was unemployed when I hit step 4, which was great. So that became my job for months to get through inventory as quickly as possible. Well, not as quickly, but as thoroughly and exhaustively as possible. I may or may not have been using that time to flagellate myself or to really hold myself accountable for everything. I don't know if I was being gentle, but I don't know. I've learned to become gentle with myself in the meantime, and since then, even though I still do things that are super weird, I still do things that I know not to do. I can at least be a little bit gentle with myself, or a lot gentle with myself, because I describe my defects as just not widely applicable superpowers. Like, I remember one year I was like, no judgment ever, and there were terrible people around me, and I needed to judge. So, I remember I wrote like a letter to each of my defects, thanking them for the things that they did do right. You know, as much as I feel like working the steps and specifically getting through like the hill of step 4, it's allowed me to recognize my own humanity, to see other people's humanity, and also to see it in actions, etc. Like, so I'm on my second round of the steps now. I have a favorite step, which is number 11. That was like my favorite, you know, because I maintain 2 minutes. I think it's 3. I maintain a conscious. I talk to God and I listen every day, or God or Goddess, the moon, whatever. Like I don't really have. I was so excited to pick like a higher power when I got here, and I don't know that I know what that is right now, and then funnily I'm back on step 2. So it just really depends on the day what that thing is. So service is a big deal for me. Working the steps, attending meetings, self-care. My self-care is I really love to exercise. I like to have really intricate and expressive nails. I like to cooking for myself, and that's basically like those are the tools that I've used. But what my life looks like today is that, you know, I have as much as illness is contagious. In my experience, healing has been too. Even in very small incremental ways, I've seen healing in my family, and I didn't even have to supervise any of it, which is what I wanted to do. But now it's the focus is entirely on me, and I have a great job, I have a great boss, I am dating a normal person who has boundaries, and more on that later, I guess. But so far, so good. I don't know. I didn't have the capacity to imagine what things would be like for me now. And I don't know why I didn't, because it's very simple. Like my life is pretty simple and serene, with the occasional road bump. But like, luckily I have tools to handle that and not spin out or lash out or do. I have things to reach for that will help me grow. So that's it. That was a problem till we just read this. I mean, one thing that I mean, in this reading, I don't know. I have a difficult time digesting these readings, to be perfectly honest with you. I think I know what I'm going to say. But I don't. I know. It had me thinking about my mom a lot and how we interact now that I've been here for a bit. And my mom was staying with me in my home when I started coming here. And I think someone spoke to me after a meeting, and they're like, "Oh, your mother lives with you. You're a saint." And it was unsaint-like. We had a very difficult time. I felt, the more I started to learn about my family, I felt really betrayed by her. And I was angry for years. And she's the only person who I have delivered an amends to. The others, I have amended my behavior, but she's the only one who got her letter from me. And now, my mom and I, we drove from Los Angeles to Richmond, Virginia. We spent like 5 days in a car together. And that was so nice. I didn't expect to say how nice it was, but I took the opportunity to get to know my mom as a human being, as opposed to just my mother. And the circumstances that were around me coming to being born, my father, how did she come to LA? And our relationship is really good now. I mean, obviously, there's still moments where I hang up the phone. But my mom meditates. We meditate together. She's like, "I will never go to therapy. I will never go to Alanon, ever." I'm like, all right, cool. But we do have that little bit, and I accept what's happening now, and it's good, and I'm grateful. So I would like to just cry for the remaining couple minutes. Whatever.